The Turner family's journey to their dream home on Johns Island. Imagine this, you've done all the research, watched every video, and you think you know exactly where you want to live. You're all set to move into a community you've fallen in love with, until you realize it's not quite the right fit. That's exactly what happened to the Turner family. They thought Somerville was the place for them, but that's just part of the story. Stick around because this is a story you're not going to want to miss. Here's the deal. The Turner family, mom, dad, and they have 2 kids, had their eyes set on Somerville. And when they reached out to me, they were like, Ryan, we've seen all of your videos. We absolutely love it. We think it's going to be the perfect place for us. And they were drawn to the schools, the parks, the family-friendly vibe, the different restaurants. They had heard all the right things online, and for a while it seemed like Somerville was the perfect match. They weren't in a rush. They actually wanted to make sure they got this right, so they did what most people do. They started looking at homes and reached out to a realtor. But here's where things went sideways. They connected with a realtor who seemed more interested in closing deals than actually listening to their needs. The guy had commission breath, and if you know the type I'm talking about, you know exactly what I'm referring to.
I'm kind of a big deal. People know me. I'm very important.
He only showed them houses that were either his own listings or a listing of an agent in his brokerage. Or he was just showing them homes he was trying to sell. He really wasn't basing any of the home showings on what they were actually looking for. He wasn't listening to them. It became pretty clear that he really wasn't listening to them or hearing what they wanted. They had a list, a pretty solid list of must-haves, but none of those homes really hit the mark. So after a few frustrating showings, the Turners knew something just wasn't right. They were starting to feel like they were just another sale, not a family trying to make the best choice for their future. That's when they made the decision to walk away from the realtor and start completely fresh. Now, this is the part of the story that I'm like, how you doing?
How you doing?
So they called me, right? And I'll tell you, when we sat down, it wasn't just about finding a house for them. It was about understanding what their lives were actually going to be like in South Carolina. They didn't just want a house in Somerville because it was popular. They wanted a place that would fit their work schedules, their family life, and most importantly, give them room to grow, because I don't think they were done with 2 kids. And here's where I had to really take a step back and really listen. The thing was, Somerville wasn't going to be the best place for them, not because it's a bad area, but because it didn't quite fit their lifestyle. I knew they needed space, lots of it. And they also needed a neighborhood that had that quiet, slower pace, but with easy access to Charleston. So I suggested they look into Johns Island. And let me tell you, they were hesitant at first. They didn't know much about the area, but I asked them to trust me, and they did. Now, I knew Johns Island was perfect for them because it had the room they needed. It had the backyard space, right? They could put that pool in they were telling me about. The peace they wanted because, again, we were out on 2 acres. And it was close enough to Charleston for Dad's commute, because I got to tell you, he works downtown, but he also sometimes works in North Charleston. So he has to go between both places, which, I mean, if you're living in Johns Island, you're a lot closer than you are than Somerville. But here's the thing. I didn't just find them a house. I found them the house, right? Right out of the gate, too. Like, look what I do. I was pretty impressed. And the best part, it wasn't even listed yet, right? I mean, come on, it doesn't get better than that. But seriously, I have connections through my local networking group of realtors and builders, and they let me know about some of their off-market properties. And I kind of looked at it and was like, hey, I think we should look at this and consider this as maybe a viable option. And I knew exactly what they were looking for. The kids could have a huge backyard. They could have a sense of space they wouldn't have gotten in Somerville. And the price was within their budget. The best part was I was able to negotiate another $50,000 off the asking price. Ah, yes. God, that feels good. I'm telling you guys, I'm in this business for the wins and just making it happen for people. That's why I love it. I absolutely love it. I love making people excited and getting those big wins. So yeah, you heard that right. $50K, $50,000 off. That's a big win in this market. And I'll tell you what, if they had stuck with the first realtor, they wouldn't even have seen this house. It wouldn't even have been on their radar. But because of my connections and understanding the market, we got them into their dream home for an incredible price. Now, when they walked into the house on Johns Island, I could immediately see the relief in their eyes. They knew this was it. It was everything they needed: more space, more privacy, and more of the lifestyle they had dreamed of. One of the big things, Mrs. Turner said to me, and I promised them I wouldn't use their first names. So one of the things she said to me was like, I actually walked in and I felt like I was home, and she goes, we're 20 minutes from the beach here. She's like, that's incredible. She's like, when we get home at 4 o'clock, I can pack everybody up in the car and we can be at the beach in a half an hour. That's incredible. So it checked a lot of their lifestyle boxes. Now, a few months later, they're all settled in. The kids are loving the backyard. They're enjoying their neighborhood. And best of all, they're not stressed about their decision anymore. They're happy. They absolutely love the home that they've purchased. And to be honest with you, I think the biggest takeaway here is that sometimes the house you think you want isn't the one that's going to be the right fit. And it's not always about the location that's most popular or the one that everyone's talking about. It's about what works for you and your family, for your day-to-day life. That's what's most important thing. Now, I'm proud that the Turners trusted me and to guide them through this process. We found them something they didn't even know they needed. And to be honest, or an area that they were even considering, which is crazy. So if you're out there thinking of making that move, whether it's to Somerville, Johns Island, or anywhere in between, take a page out of the Turners book, do your research, but also make sure you're listening to the people who really understand the area and what it takes to find the right home for you in your life. And I'm here to help you do that. All right, so speaking of close calls, because that was a close call for the Turners, here's another one. I had a couple ready to retire in their dream home, only to find themselves stuck with a builder rushing them to sign off on poor craftsmanship. And let me tell you, without an agent to back them up, they were on the brink of making a very costly mistake. But I kind of stepped in to save the day.
You're my hero.
Let me tell you how. So the Johnson family came to me hoping to retire in Charleston with a dream home to spend their golden years in a safe space for their family to gather, especially for their kids and grandkids. Sounds great, right? But unfortunately, things didn't go as smoothly as they hoped. When they decided to go through the process without representation, they had no buyer's representation. And let me take you through what happened. So the Johnsons had already put in a lot of research. They were excited about their new home possibility and moving to Charleston. They found a builder they really liked online, and they thought they were getting a high quality built home. The only thing was they didn't have anyone on their side. They had no buyer's agent, no buyer representation. Now, you don't need that to buy a new construction home here in Charleston or any of the surrounding areas. You can go buy a home all by yourself. However, they didn't have an agent to look out for their best interest throughout this process. And that's where a lot of people make mistakes. They just thought, hey, everything will work out itself. It'll be fine. But as the house started nearing completion, the Johnsons noticed several issues. Things like uneven flooring, poorly done trim, and the cabinets weren't even aligned correctly. And the builder was pushing them to be like, it's okay, we'll have somebody come back and fix it. Just sign off on this. And they were like, hey, it's not done. We don't feel comfortable signing off on this, And they were being asked to accept essentially subpar craftsmanship in a home, a brand new home that they were planning on retiring in. And I mean, it was ridiculous. You should have seen how bad some of this craftsmanship was. So they wanted a home that was safe, sturdy, one they knew their grandkids would be safe running around and having a good time in without any worries, right? But now they were being rushed into making a decision they weren't comfortable with. So here's where things could have gone terribly wrong for the Johnsons. They didn't have an agent representing them, and the builder knew they didn't have anyone to push back. He was trying to get them to sign off on a house that wasn't up to standards they'd been promised. Unfortunately, by the time the Johnsons reached out to me, they had already signed the paperwork, which meant the builder wouldn't pay me. I wasn't the point of interest, to the deal. So I wasn't on the deal initially. So the builder was like, hey, sorry, if you want a realtor, you're going to have to pay him now. So Mr. Johnson, understanding how much I could actually help him save this deal, was actually more than willing to pay me directly. And guys, it was a lot, and I mean, for the buyer to come out of pocket for that stuff, not always easy. But he had enough belief in my abilities and what I could do to help him that it was worth that price to him to have me on the contract, even though he was going to have to incur my commission. So had they contacted me before they signed anything, the builder would have covered my compensation. But in this case, Mr. Johnson was grateful to have someone on his side who could step in and fight on their behalf. And honestly, that's when things started to turn around. So I went and did a green and blue tape walkthrough with the builder, pointed out all the things that I saw, all the things that Mr. Johnson was concerned about. And then we even scheduled one of my preferred home inspectors to go out there and inspect the home, and he found stuff. So now on top of all this home building stress, and now we just got a report back from the home inspector that says they got to fix even more stuff. The Johnsons were faced with a personal crisis. They had to fly back to Texas because one of their grandkids was undergoing a surgery to have a tumor removed. So not only were they dealing with this construction headache, but now they couldn't even be in Charleston to attend inspections and additional meetings with the builder. It was a really tough time for them. I felt for them, I really did. But luckily the surgery went well and their grandson pulled through, but that left the Johnsons in a very difficult place. They couldn't be here for any of those remaining walkthroughs or quality inspections. And I told them not to worry. That's where I come in. While they were back in Texas, I made sure to attend every single inspection and meeting on their behalf. I was there for the quality walkthroughs, pointing out the issues that needed to be addressed by the home inspector and by ourselves. So making sure the builder just wasn't getting away or cutting any corners. Now, when it came time for the final walkthrough, that's when the Johnsons flew back and we all met that day before. I knew how important all of this was to them. So I wasn't just, this wasn't just any house, right? This was a place where they were going to spend their retirement and host their family. And that meant a lot to them. That was all about this whole process. And so at the end of the day, we were able to get everything sorted out. The builder agreed to fix all the issues, and I was able to help the Johnsons negotiate repairs for a home that met the standards they had been promised from the start. It wasn't just about getting them a house. It wasn't just about making sure they had a safe, high quality home where their kids and grandkids could visit. When it all comes down to it, it was about making sure these folks got exactly what they were promised, but more importantly, when they moved in, it was all worth it. All the hassle, everything. It was worth it, they said. Now, I'm not saying that every builder out there is to get you, but what I am saying is that you shouldn't have to navigate these things alone. That's why builders agree to pay buyer agents on your behalf, whether it's new construction or resale, or having someone who understands the ins and outs of the entire process, because it's an essential process and there's a lot to it. The Johnsons could have been stuck with a house full of issues, but because they had someone like me in their corner, they ended up with a perfect home. Now, if you like these stories, check out this other video I have of some other great stories where I talk about other clients who've had similar issues. Go ahead and click here.